Thank you, Myriad Hutchinson, for your encouraging words. Now let us learn about the Forum for Hindu Awakening. The Forum for Hindu Awakening, or FHA, is a non-profit tax-exempt organization in the USA. The primary aim of FHA is to facilitate the spiritual progress of humanity on the path to God realization, or moksha. FHA is devoted to awakening society to the unique spiritual science underlying Hinduism, or Sanatan Hindu Dharma, its concepts and practices. It also aims to motivate people to live them. FHA strives to dispel misconceptions about the concepts and practices held sacred in Hinduism, and highlights Hinduism's inherent value in addressing and providing solutions to worldwide problems like the environmental crisis, religious intolerance, terrorism, crime, and immortality. FHA has created a website, www.hinduawakening.org, with the aim of reaching out to Hindus across the globe. Every month, over 10,000 people visit this website. We now go to our panelists, and our first panelist is Ms. Maya Jairam, a Fort Collins native who will speak on growing up in America and embracing Hindu spirituality. Maya was born and raised in Fort Collins to Hindu parents. She has a strong commitment to the community and currently serves as the chair on the Human Relations Commission. She has taken up philanthropic projects the world over, from orphanages in India to building homes for Habitat for Humanity in South Africa. I now invite Maya to speak on growing up in America and embracing Hindu spirituality. Let's give her a round of applause.
Namaste, good evening, and thank you for coming tonight. It is my profound honor to be here tonight to share my experiences on such a momentous night as Diwali. You may not know this by looking at me, though my speech and accent might betray me, but I am as native to Fort Collins as anyone can be. In fact, I was born at PVH to immigrant parents. At the time, Fort Collins was a vastly different place than it is now, and I too, a different person. It was a very homogeneous population, to say the least. Fortunately, I never felt different. In fact, I wasn't raised distinctly Hindu, Indian, or distinctly anything. I watched Ram football, ate pepperoni pizza, and drank Coca-Cola like it was going out of style. I was not raised with any specific ideas about God or spirituality. Sure, I'd hear stories, but the crux of my upbringing was mainly rooted in how I should and could be a model, citizen, and person. A lot of times, I would get asked what the red dot was for, and I would hear some truly horrible explanations. Something in me didn't quite cotton on to many of the explanations given by various and sundry people. And while I would occasionally hear about the various deities, I didn't quite get what it was all about. More often than not, those brave enough to ask a question of me would be met with a shrug. As I grew older and moved out of Fort Collins to some of the more metropolitan parts of the country, I learned more and more about Hinduism. It was all very nice, and the deity stories truly captivating, but none of it especially made sense. My adolescence and early adulthood was met with more ambivalence, but whys, and shoulder shrugs. This cursory look at my early life, if in some way representative of Hindus across America, may explain the existence of so many misconceptions about Hinduism, or, more correctly, Hindu Dharma, not only within the local and global community, but even amongst Hindus themselves. In my more recent past, specifically the last decade of my life, my interest has since deepened greatly, and it has led me to study Hindu belief and practice, as well as the fundamental spiritual principles that make it as beautiful as it is. As we mentioned at the beginning of the program, today is a most momentous day, namely Diwali, or the Festival of Lights. On this day, Hindus light lamps to celebrate the victory of the divine inherent within all of us over evil or our weaknesses. As children, Hindus are regaled with the story of Krishna defeating the evil demon Narkasur. However, the principle goes far deeper, as we just noted. Why then do we light lamps? And also, in the ritualistic worship specifically, is there a reason why we light lamps using ghee or clarified butter specifically instead of some oil? Now, many of us may not know why. Many of us may not know what exactly being a Hindu is either. In the past decade, my study and research, as well as my own practice, has led me to some interesting findings, which I would like to touch upon in brief. I would like to acknowledge and thank the Spiritual Science Research Foundation, or SSRF, for providing me with the slides I will be using today. Their research into the spiritual dimension have provided great insight for me and clarified for me the fundamental spiritual principles and science underlying Hindu concepts and practices. Now, the most fundamental principle underlying any and all practices within Hinduism hinges upon the concept that all of creation is comprised of three subtle particles. Just as we have protons, neutrons, and electrons, even more subtle and beyond the scope of modern science, there are sattva, raja, and tama. Now, what are sattva, raja, and tama? As everything is made up of these subtle elements, something that is high in the sattva component, the one on the top, is high in spiritual purity. It gives off a pleasant feeling, usually has a very calming effect on us, and so on. Something that is high in raja, or that is rajasic, denotes a lot of action and passion. And something that is high in tama, or tamasic in nature, denotes inertia and negativity. There we go. Okay. As mentioned, everything can be broadly categorized according to which is the predominant subtle basic nature, or subtle basic component rather, as can be seen in this slide. Now, I don't know if y'all can see it very clearly. It's a lot of information packed into it. But as we can see, food, it can be categorized from left to right, sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. So positive, medium, negative, just broadly speaking. So different foods, different colors that we wear. Oops. Different colors that we wear in our surroundings, our cars, our rooms, our bed sheets, everything give off different vibrations, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Same thing with the clothes, the materials that we wear, natural fibers versus animal skins, man-made clothes, and so on. They all can be categorized based on how much more or less of each element it has. And some of you are kind of giving me some interesting looks as you're coming in after taking your shoes off. It is for that reason that we actually take our shoes off before or upon entering a premises rather than wearing our shoes at home. It's because we track in not only physical dirt, but any spiritual dirt we've accumulated. So by walking around the house, it's just kind of spreading it around. So that's actually why we take off our shoes. So as we can see, there's much scope for a person to increase the spiritual purity in themselves and their lifestyle. One very popular question people ask is about Hindus eating meat. Today, lots of Hindus do consume meat and meat products. As I mentioned, I used to eat pepperoni pizza. However, like with other things, the principle behind vegetarianism is to lead a sattvic lifestyle. As we can see here, we have a steak and a banana. Looks pretty normal, nothing unusual, right? Now, when we take a look at what is going on at a subtle level, at that subtle element level, as far as the breakdown of these subtle elements, this is what a steak looks like. Now, I could be biased because I'm vegetarian, but it doesn't look very appetizing to me. What about a banana? Now, as we can see, the banana emits much more positive frequencies and is higher in the sattva component. With this in mind, we can see why a vegetarian lifestyle is more in accordance with the principle of increasing one's spiritual purity. Now, returning back to the topic of Diwali, why do we light a lamp made of ghee or clarified butter? Children and people are told it is to herald the victory of the divine over evil. And while this is true, there's a spiritual science underlying it. And again, courtesy of SSRF, here's a slide of what happens when one lights a lamp using ghee as fuel. As we can see, it not only heralds and signifies triumph of all that is good and divine over all that is base and evil within us and our surroundings, it actually has the capacity to increase the spiritual purity in our physical surroundings and attract the particles of that very energy, and provides a favorable atmosphere for deep contemplation on the divine and focus on that divine energy. Now, by contrast, at the beginning of this event, the mayor and us panelists lit a sesame oil lamp. Why not ghee? In this particular case, as mentioned at the beginning of this event, the energy of action is needed for the event that is going on. And the raja, or action passion particles emitted from the sesame oil, provide that. So as we can see, we've only begun to scratch the surface of Hinduism. The depth and vastness of it would indeed take many lifetimes to understand. However, I'm nonetheless grateful that I am beginning to get an inkling of this and apply it to my own life, to continue in the vein set by my parents from childhood on how to make myself and my community better. Namaste.
Thank you, Maya, for sharing your views on growing up in America and embracing Hindu spirituality. And thank you, Mayor Doug Hutchinson.
Yes.
Let's give him a round of applause.
I have one other mayoral thing I gotta go do tonight, so thank you.